Alright, so in this video, we're just going to continue those 11.2 notes. We still have that disruptive selection to do. So again, no matter which type of selection it is, we always start out with that normal distribution. The example in this case for disruptive selection is a lazuli bunting population. Lazuli buntings are actually birds. This is an example of a male lazuli bunting, spelled like this, lazuli bunting. But anyway, as you can see, the male has a very brightly colored plumage, right? It has that bright blue coloring in its feathers. And it has that for a reason. This is very similar to the pheasant population in our neck of the woods. Right? That bright coloring helps it attract mates. It helps it have more offspring in the long run. Whereas the females in this population would actually be kind of a drab brown color because they need to blend into their surroundings. They don't need to attract a mate. They need to stay alive and hide from their predators. So in this example with our lazuli buntings, we have a distribution of traits again, right? There are actually two options for that male. Right? There are those that have that bright blue plumage, but then there are also some males that actually have kind of a brownish color, just like the females do, right? And it seems kind of strange that there would be brown males, but the reason why there are is because there's a few different kinds of problems that pop up for this population. Again, they want to be brightly colored because they want to have as many reproduction opportunities as possible. They want to attract as many mates as possible so they can pass on their genes so that they can have offspring, period. But it's actually kind of advantageous for those lazuli bunting males to be drab brown colored because again they survive better in terms of they can hide from their predators, but there's also an unexpected problem with being blue. It turns out in that population the older blue males will pick on and possibly even kill the younger blue males because they are their future competition. So since they don't want to have to share mates with these youngsters, they actually pick on them to the point where they can actually kill them. So it's actually a disadvantage, a big disadvantage for a young lazuli bunting male to be bright blue. But if that young lazuli bunting male reaches adulthood with that bright blue coloring, it's a major advantage because it has way, way more offspring than the other brown versions of that lazuli bunting. So what we're going to see in this population is a disruptive selection because you could either be on one end where you're brown, which actually could be good in its own way, or you can be on the other end where those birds are brightly blue colored, which is also very good, but you could also be in the middle, right? And in this case, there's risk reward, right? You want to be blue, but you have to be really, really bright blue in order for this to be an advantage for you. If you're only kind of blue, if you're somewhere in the middle, right, where you got a little bit of blue, but you also have a little bit of that brown color, right? It's bluish brownish, right? You're not blue enough to have more offspring as an adult, but you are still blue enough to be picked on, right? You're losing out on both ends, right? In this population, it's much more advantageous to just be drab brown because they actually survive. They don't have as many offspring, but they have a much easier time reaching adulthood. So they could either be brown or they can be brightly blue colored, but they don't actually want to be anything in between. So this is a disruptive selection because it actually changes that distribution so that there's two curves, one on the brown end of the spectrum and one on the blue end of the spectrum. So again, you may not have colors like I do to do this, which is fine. You just need to make this a dotted line instead of a solid line. That way you can tell the difference between the original normal distribution and what happens after the fact when you have that disruptive selection here. But it's disruptive because the average traits are eliminated. You just end up with extremes. If this was true for our population and our height, we'd all be 7-footers or 4-footers. There'd be nobody in between, right? But that's obviously not true in that case. But for the lazuli buntings, it's better to be bright blue as an adult, right? But it sucks to be bright blue as a youngster. So brown can actually be selected for one way and the blue in a different way. It's really bad in this context to be something in between. Because if you're not brown enough to blend in, if you're just a little bit blue, but not blue enough to get more and more mating opportunities, those are the ones that are majorly selected against. So it turns out all of the adult lazuli buntings are either brightly blue colored or they're that drab brown color. Okay, so there are a couple questions at the end of these notes here, right? And as far as these are concerned, since it makes more sense for you to try and think about it a little bit and see if you can come up with an answer, I'm just going to put these in your quiz that goes with these notes, right? So you'll just have to see what you think might happen in these different cases, but you'll have it in your quiz, so make sure you complete your quiz. That's all for your notes, though.